Good. And today is a sad day. It is a day in which the country has to reckon with itself. The country has to reckon with its president. On this day, the House of Representatives has brought an article of impeachment against Donald John Trump. Yet again, an article of impeachment brought to the Senate. This article of impeachment is for the insurrection on January 6th. We're asking all people of faith, all people of good conscience, all citizens of this country to sign a petition asking for the Senate to find Donald Trump guilty. Now, you may need to wait until you've heard all the arguments that will be presented before Congress over the next few weeks. You may want to make your decision now. If you're like me, you know that what Donald Trump did in the days leading up to the day of the insurrection and the days following show that he incited that action. He incited his followers. We're going to read for you the petition tonight. You can find it at votecommongood.com. We'd invite you to go there now and to sign this. We want to get as many faith voters as we can. Now look, whether your faith is the Christian faith, like the faith that I hold, or your faith is of another religious tradition, or your faith is simply in your fellow citizen, or your faith is in the Constitution, we don't mind you defining your own faith when we say faith voters. We want all people of good faith and all people of good conscience to raise their voice to the Senate and to say it's necessary that we convict this president. Look, no one should be happy about this. We should all be terrified by what happened with the insurrection. We know that elements like that existed in our society, but we also believe that our system would hold those elements back, that our system would keep those elements at bay, that our system would keep those elements fringe. But that is not what happened. Not only in the weeks after the election, but in the weeks up to the election, the years up to the election, Donald Trump ginned up people, telling them that their very own government was going to lie and cheat them out of this election. In fact, he said the same thing about the election in 2016, that it was a rigged election, thinking he was going to lose. He set up this election, claiming that he was cheated before it ever took place. So we know that the behavior of this president is something that needs to be responded to. Now, we're going to help you at Vote Common Good to engage in this conversation. We don't want to spend our next 4 years talking about Donald Trump. No, we don't. But we also need to be sure that the consequences to all those who participated in hurting our democracy in the days leading up to and on the day of January 6th are taken into account. And the way that the co-equal branches of the government does this to a president who incited an insurrection is to give him the penalty of conviction of impeachment. Now, I don't need to explain to all of you how impeachment works, that the House of Representatives brings the article of impeachment. It's like in a court of law, an indictment, and then the Senate is the jury. So the Senate needs to decide if this president will be convicted of the charges brought by the House of Representatives. I, as one, will say that I think he is guilty. I watched him commit the crime. He deserves his day in court, and he deserves his day in public court of appeals and in the court of public appeal. But we've rendered our decision. And now the people of the Senate of the United States of America, they need to render theirs as well. So I ask you to join in signing this petition. I'm going to take a few moments to read this to you, but I just want to ask you to consider this. Donald Trump will say that he told his supporters not to act violently. But they acted violently. So is it just that they didn't follow him, that they didn't listen to him? Is he just such an inept leader that people did the opposite of what he asked? Those people were there in his name. Why were they doing the opposite of what he asked? And if they weren't there in his name, then why were they carrying his signs and chanting his names and saying that they were there on his behalf? So I'd like to read to you the petition that we're asking people to sign. You can find this again over at votecommongood.com. It is a faith voters' call for impeachment and conviction. It reads as this. As citizens of the United States and people of faith, we call on the Senate to find Donald John Trump guilty of the article of impeachment, incitement of insurrection, As a consequence of being found guilty, he be barred from holding public office in the future. While the end of the Trump presidency comes with great relief, we must remember that his unprecedented efforts while president to overturn the 2020 election continue to inflict damage on our democracy. Similar to the days following a natural disaster, this is a time of cleanup, support, and addressing the areas of weakness that this disaster has exposed. We must see a cleared-eye call of accountability for the following the insurrection of January 6th. There is work to be done in de-radicalizing those in our society who believe the big lie about this election and acted violently in its wake, and the legal consequences for those who acted lawlessly must be pursued. The former president must be held accountable by Congress for his incitement of this insurrection. By adding your voice, you say this: I hereby call on the Senate of the United States to find Donald John Trump guilty of impeachment charge of incitement of insurrection. As a consequence of being found guilty, he is barred from holding public office in the future. From the article of impeachment, incitement of insurrection, it reads, in his conduct while President of the United States and in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care of the laws be faithfully executed, Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States. And then on the petition text, which you'll find at votecommongood.com and in the link below, is the entire text of the impeachment, the single article of impeachment. I'd encourage you to read it, and I would encourage you to add your name. You can go to votecommongood.com. We'd ask you to share this petition. You can add your name, and then we will deliver this petition to the Senate. We will say to the Senate that we, people of faith, people of good conscience, want you to know that we support the conviction of Donald Trump. Look, a lot of us want to set aside the Trump administration. We want it to be gone. We want it to be behind us, and we all need to move forward. But we are still, and for the next few weeks, we are still in the period of time that holds the Trump presidency. It lingers and needs to be dealt with. And I believe, and I would encourage you to conclude as well, that the way we get through and over the Trump presidency is to do all of our work as citizens and members of Congress to do their work, to complete our tasks. And our tasks at this point include reconciling what happened on January 6th, who participated in it, and finding Donald Trump guilty of inciting the insurrection. Thank you for joining us here on this live stream. We hope that you will share the stream, or you're welcome to just share the petition. We'd like for you to share it with all the people that you know. And again, we're going to do this over the next few weeks. It will be 2 weeks before the trial starts in the Senate, and then it will be another week or two during the trial. So we have some weeks to build people's confidence in the Senate's ability to make this decision. And we need all of us to be encouraging and calling on our senators. So if you live in a state where it's unclear what your senator will do, we'll find ways for you to reach out to them, to call them, to email them, to write them letters, and say that you, as a faith voter, call for impeachment conviction. I'm Doug Padgett from Vote Common Good. Thank you.